Okay. Forgot to tell you, this water has been brought up to exactly 172 degrees. I find out that's the best temperature for me. I'm on my second batch here. It's up to about 2. I need to get it up to 2.6. The correct amount is 5.6 gallons of water. It's about 5.5 now. 5.6. We're going to add that mash turn. Trying to hit a strike temperature about 151 degrees. So I found that 172 by the time it cools off being transferred usually gets me real close to my strike temperature after I stir in the grain. Here I'm pouring the grain into the mash turn slowly so it all gets nice and wet. Get all that of there good. Mash it in, you've got to stir it real good. You need to stir it for about 3 minutes. And hopefully, after it's all stirred in real good, you'll take your temperature with a thermometer and it'll be around 151. If it is not, you can add a little cold water, you can let it sit a little bit. Okay, I'm going to come back here a little later, try to get the right strike temperature. Stir it in for 3 minutes. Okay, I've gotten my strike temperature, it's right at 151 degrees. Now I'm going to shut the lid on this. I'll leave my thermometer in there. I'm going to let it sit for an hour at least is the minimum amount. I usually go about 75 minutes. We'll come back after that and we'll show you what we do next. Okay, the next thing we have to do is take 9.9 gallons of water, put them in your kettle, and go ahead and start it, the fire on it to get it going. You need to get this up to about 168 degrees in the hour it takes for this stuff to finish mashing. Okay, so I've put the 9.9 gallons of water in here. I turn the fire on about medium-low. This is going to take an hour for this to happen. In my case, 75 minutes. Okay. Okay. My water is now 172 degrees. Just tested it with this. Put the lid back on it. Now I'm going to cut the fire off. The brew sheet says 168. I go up a couple more degrees. I like 172. Okay, this stuff, this mash turn's been cooking for 75 minutes for mine. You can see in there, grain's all ready to go. Now what I'm going to do is start opening up this valve. I'm going to let the first quart of it go through. And that's going to have some discoloration. It's going to have some of the grain. That's my fine particles in it. And after about a quart's gone through, I'm going to start running it into the bucket. After that, I'm going to take my glass Pyrex measuring cup and I'm going to slowly dip water in here and try to keep the water above the grain bed to 2 inches. And so I'm going to add water about the same amount as it's coming out down here. So let's watch me when I start this first quarts. Here it comes out, goes down in here. It's coming out now. It's going to come out too fast, so slow it down a tad. There's still some air in it. Slow it down. Okay, that's still a little dark, but it's getting clear. Okay, that's just about as clear as it's going to get. That's about the right rate of speed to it coming out of there. So now I'm going to put my finger on it, stick it in this bucket, let it fill that bucket out, and take this, pour it back in the top. Okay, we'll get my plastic thing I used for the top first. Now, that's going out. The method I use, this is not the method everyone uses, is I'm going to take the water, I'm going to scoop it out of here, and I'm going to ladle it into the top of the mash churn. But to keep it from sinking down from over here, I set a plastic lid off a lettuce keeper, and I pour on that. That way it doesn't disturb the grain bed, and I keep an even grain bed. So here I'm going to pour that. We get the first couple of them pretty fast, but they need to be an inch taller. Excuse me, I need to be 2 inches taller than the grain bed. And you can look down here and see the grain bed once you get this up and it clears a little bit. I'm going to do this on and off. It's going to take probably about 30 minutes, maybe even a little longer, to wash all this grain. And what you're trying to do is wash the sugar out of the grain. When you heat it up to 152, the enzymes reacted in the grain and converted all the starches in there to sugar. So now what we're doing is we're slowly letting water trickle through the grain bed, and that'll displace the sugar, will be absorbed by the water, and we get sugar water. Flies really, really like this sugar water, so they're going to be attracted to this, so you're going to have to be careful. You don't want to kill them when they get in there. That's why I keep the lids on the buckets. Okay, now I'm going to continue doing this till I get all of this grain washed out. So I'm going to cut it off and I'll come back a little bit later. Okay. Now I've taken all the water, sponge water, I've transferred it slowly over in here to the mash churn. I've gotten 5 gallons out, well, my second 5 gallons, and the water's leveled down about that far. I want to go ahead and start heating up the wort. This is what officially is called wort now. It's sugar water. So I'm going to pour this first 5 gallons into the boil kettle. Look at the color of that. The darker the color, the more sugar. So the first 5 gallons is always the darkest. It's got the richest concentration of the sugar. So I'm going to put this in here and go ahead and get a jump on boiling this. All of this is going to yield about 13.5 gallons. We're going to put it in here, and we're going to boil this for about an hour and 15 minutes. And that's where we're going to add the hops and the Irish moss, and you'll see pictures of that later. So, okay, we drained all the wort out. The grain bed is down. It's just grain, old grain left over here, still kind of warm. This is my last 2 gallons. First one I got 5 gallons, the second one I got 5.5 gallons, and this is exactly 2. Should end up with 12.5 gallons. So I'm going to top this off into my boiling bucket, boiling kettle. Take a picture of this. It's kind of floppy. Take a picture of the top of that, please. Now you see that's all foamy on top? Now I personally add marbles. Use some clear marbles. You see those or not. I'm going to add 10 of them. And one of the big problems with when you start boiling this is boiling over. You've got to watch it like a hawk. What I do is I put my lid on here like this. My lid has a hole in it. So what I do is I'll take a couple of these pot holders, set them on top. I'm going to stick my thermometer part of this, the probe, down into this hole. This on top to hold it here. And then I can look at the temperature and tell you what the top temperature is. I can also set my temperature alarm up to right at 200. And it'll go off whenever it hits 200, and I'll know to get up and take the lid off and watch it, because you have to be real careful. This stuff boils over very easy. So there, I got it set at 200. The alarm will go off and tell me. I'm going to keep this fire going pretty fast. It takes a lot of time to get that many gallons, so I'm going to crank up the temperature. I'm going to let this thing boil. Once it starts boiling, if you're doing a 1 hour boil, I'm going to do about 75 minutes probably today. So I'll let it boil 15 minutes, and I'll set my timers, and I'll start adding my hops and other items. I'm going to come back right when